Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us this Tuesday evening for a webinar by the How Are You Diet. I'm Paul Malcolm, president of the How Are You Diet, and it's sure a privilege to have you with us tonight. And we're excited about this presentation on cognitive function and dementia. It's a lot of great information Dr. Donaldson has put together, and we can't wait to get down into the details and let him share what he has for you. But before we get started, I'd like to just comment that if you have any comments that you need to make or any feedback or questions, type it down in the bottom left-hand section of the screen in front of you, and we'll work through the things as they come in, and then we'll do a question and answer session with Dr. Donaldson at the end for any questions that haven't been answered yet. Before we get started, let's go ahead and just open in a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this day and for the opportunity to share this information. We pray that you'll give Dr. Donaldson the words and that all technology will work fine, and that this great information will be shared with the people on the phone, Lord. Pray that something here will help improve someone's life. Pray that you'll bless our evening, and we love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, Dr. Donaldson's been the research director for the How Are You Diet since 1998. He's a chemical engineer graduate from Cornell University, and his work consists of designing and coordinating studies based on specific symptoms or diseases, and he focuses on the results of the How Are You Diet. He is also the author of numerous research studies that have been published, and his research is ongoing, and he plays a vital role in new product development and other innovations. So it's a real privilege to have Dr. Donaldson with us. Dr. Donaldson, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. It's my pleasure to be with you all tonight here. So tonight we're talking about cognitive function and dementia. And 20 years ago, I don't think we would have been able to have this conversation. Maybe not even 10 years ago. It was still pretty early, and we weren't sure really if it was really going to work the way we think it ought to work here. But now we do know quite a bit more, and so we can talk with a lot more confidence about dementia, cognitive function, and really what's going on here. As you can see here, it is the third leading cause of death in the USA after heart disease and cancer. And, surveys are popping up saying that, people, especially people who have helped elderly patients through dementia, this is the disease they do not want to get. Give me cancer, give me arthritis, give me something else, just not dementia, because it takes away what makes you you. Your relationships disappear. Your memory goes. And so it's really hard. It's hard, and you want to know, is there something that you can do for this? Because there isn't much hope out there in the medical community. There isn't much they can say. We can try to slow it down, but they don't really understand it, and therefore they can't really treat it very well. They're just trying to do symptoms. But what's it look like? It looks like a 68-year-old professional woman just starts to have trouble with his speech and then having trouble with depression and having trouble doing work. Just regular everyday work like shopping and cooking, working at the computer. And this one particular lady had trouble even making a gingerbread man with her granddaughter, forgetting things, confusing the minute hand, the hour hand on the clock. And, she got very concerned when she forgot to pick up her grandchildren at school twice in a 2-week period. It's a female physician, 73-year-old, and just having a history of declining slowly, but then just her memory got what her partner called just being disastrous. And she just mixed up names of peoples and pets and had trouble navigating to the point that, she went to the restroom in the restaurant and came back and didn't know how to get back to her table. And just the loss of dignity that happens with something like that. It's the men that can't run their business anymore. They can't run the numbers. They can't keep track of the accounting. The women who can't read books anymore because it doesn't make sense, who can't talk to their, to their loved ones. They don't remember what they just did. So it's really tragic. It's a tragedy that's happening to us. And it's becoming such a large killer among so many of us. You wonder, is there hope? And there is tonight. So we want to talk about what that looks like, because you don't want to be this person. You don't want to be that, and you don't have to be. So we can understand more of the cause of Alzheimer's disease. And they talk a lot about amyloid beta protein, because that's the hallmark. When you see that, then you know you've got Alzheimer's, and those plaques and those tangles that show up. And I figure something's going wrong, and they don't always know why it shows up. But Dr. Dale Bredesen, trained as a medical doctor, but also as a scientist, did a lot of research in the laboratory at the molecular level, working with cell tissue cultures, trying to figure out if they could understand the process better at the cell level. Or you could measure stuff in a matter of hours or days. It didn't take months or years to figure out if this was working or that was working. So he did a lot of work in the laboratory and then was able to explain some things with something called the amyloid precursor protein. So the precursor protein is something called a dependence receptor. It was kind of a new thing because it was usually receptors kind of work the other way. When something binds to it, then it activates. And when something's not bound to it, it doesn't do anything. But this is kind of backwards. When something is bound to a dependence receptor, and what is supposed to be bound is called a ligand. When that ligand is bound to the receptor, then it causes an action. In this case, it tells the cell everything's going. All systems go. Keep on going. Keep on doing what you've been doing. When the ligand isn't bound to the APP, then it says, okay, something's wrong here. We're not getting what we need here. And you have a process of cell death going on. It's the synapses start to draw back and start to decrease the number of connections going on here because we need to withdraw. It's a programmed cell death, and it's really just suicide of a cell. So that's what amyloid precursor protein is. And there's a lot of research on this, people trying to figure out, well, what this does, and so on here. And the question is here, let's see here, is what happens to this precursor protein? And if you look up here, get a little highlighter here. Yeah, here there's two pathways. Here's the precursor protein here in the middle here. It can be cut two different ways. If it's cut just once here by a protease, you get two peptides here that promote cell growth over here. These are promoting cell growth, and they're different from the ones over here. Over here, if this different proteases come and slice it 3 times, you end up with 4 little proteins here, 2 inside the cell and 2 outside the cell. Here's the amyloid beta right here that you see here, and this is what creates the tangles seen in Alzheimer's disease. Those are messengers here outside the cell and messengers inside the cell. These ones here are telling the cell to retreat, to withdraw resources, to withdraw from the synapses, and to use resources someplace else. This beta amyloid protein here, it also gives feedback to the amyloid precursor protein. And so as it goes here, you actually get what's called a preonic feedback. It doesn't need it's amplified by the product of the reaction itself here. And you get even more cell death. So that's what's going on. There's 2 different ways to cut this. So you're looking at this and wonder, why is this built in this way here? Is there any way that this amyloid precursor protein could be protective? And if you think about it, you know, if you run out of money and you keep on spending it, you're going to get in serious trouble here. Unless you can print your own money, but that's a different topic. But like most of us, we run out of money. We have to withdraw. We need to cut the budget a little bit and shrink back and conserve our resources here for the things that we have to have, rather than spending it on things that would be nice to have. And so the brain is doing that in the Alzheimer's disease process a little bit here. It's actually protecting you in some ways. And Alzheimer's disease is a little bit different from other things in the body, like a cancer is a external growth. It's internal growth of something growing out of control here. But Alzheimer's is actually a protective mechanism against the brain, against infections, inflammation, or toxins that are affecting the brain activity going on. So let's look a minute, and what is it that binds to APP? And Dr. Bredesen has found that there's about 36 factors, maybe a few more, that affect how APP is cut. And so it's kind of like a field generator. It takes inputs from all the different fronts and all the activities and people bringing resources and integrates those into an appropriate response. Can we support the neural empire that we have here? Can we dissolve these synapses and grow new synapses over here? Or do we need to retreat and conserve our resources here? So it really comes down to about 3 different kinds of things: infections, inflammation, or toxins. So of all these factors here, we can look at some of these factors here that affect how APP is cut here. So inflammatory factors, you might notice as you scan through these that this list doesn't look a lot different than inflammation in the rest of the body. And you'd be right. Inflammation here is really the same kind of things. And in some cases, some researchers and physicians would call Alzheimer's diabetes type 3 because of the inflammation that's related to it. So you may have high homocysteine levels that are obviously correlated with low levels of B6, B12, and folate, low levels of antioxidant vitamins, as well as low levels of omega-3 fats, and high fasting insulin levels, high blood sugar levels, being overweight or obese. Those are all factors that can play into this here. And you can also have factors, other inflammatory factors here, like high levels of oxidized LDL, or just high cholesterol in general and triglycerides, low levels of HDL. You could have low levels of glutathione. That's the master antioxidant inside your cells. And if you're low on that, the redox potential is really off in the mitochondria and elsewhere here. On a more systemic level, leaky gut has been noticed to be associated with Alzheimer's disease. So leaky gut causes all kinds of food allergies, causes inflammation in the body. The immune system is reacting to things that really shouldn't even be in the body. The infections and inflammation can also affect the blood-brain barrier. We think that that's like an ironclad thing that nothing can get through. But it's not really that way. It can be tight or it can be leaky. So inflammation allows things to get up into the brain that don't belong there either. Along with the leaky gut, there's gluten sensitivities along there too. And Roundup's probably involved in some of those as well. So that's some of the factors that can affect Alzheimer's and the way that this precursor protein is cut. Notice there's other hormone factors that are involved as well. This is, low levels of vitamin D affect the brain negatively. Low levels for women of estradiol and progesterone, even testosterone. Women as well as men need this. They don't need as much. Guys need a lot more, but you both need some of it. Stress hormones, if those are elevated and continually elevated, instead of just cycling and going down every night and then ramping back up to wake you up, and they're just chronically high, you have troubles here, and you end up with burnout. And hormones, thyroid hormones, also involved in this. There's other factors too, toxic factors, things like heavy metals here. So if you have heavy metals that are in your system, they can end up in your brain too and cause you a lot of brain fog and worse. You could end up with too much copper, not related, the copper-zinc ratio needs to be about 1:1. And if it's off, it will also be bad for your brain and tend to cause your brain to go towards dementia. Magnesium's good all over the place, and selenium, antioxidant mineral, that's very helpful there. Other toxic factors are pathogens, mold, viruses, Lyme disease, and others. Mold, those mycotoxins that come from mold can end up in the central nervous system. Viruses can travel through nerves into the central nervous system up into your brain as well. And microbes can actually come in through the nose and bypass the blood-brain barrier. They can go up the vagus nerve from the gut up into your brain as well. There are pathways that allow microbes even up into the brain. Kind of a creepy thought, really. But you can get infections in your brain. And the amyloid plaque actually is part of the defense for that. If you don't have good defense, then that is at least the secondary defense. So it doesn't hurt you even worse than it is. So it's fighting with what it has. You have to give your brain the right materials to fight, otherwise it doesn't fight well. So that's the case for Alzheimer's, it's the case for everything else as well. So really, when you look at this, there's really about 3 types of Alzheimer's disease based on where they come from. The first one is inflammatory type, and that's what usually people think of, like diabetes type 3. Elevated insulin levels, blood sugar levels high, homocysteine, and markers for inflammation and so on. The second type is atrophic. You just don't have the hormone support, and you have stress and burnout, and you don't have inflammation in this case. You're not hot, you're cold. In a sense, you could think of it as being really cold, just kind of getting along but not thriving very well. And then there's a third form, that's a toxic form. And here the dementia is more widespread in the brain, and it comes from, like I said, it comes from microbes, could come from mold, from chemical exposure in a workplace, and from heavy metals. So depending on where you got your Alzheimer's disease depends on how you fix it. But at least from here you can understand where Alzheimer's disease comes from. It's a protective mechanism in the body, protecting you from much worse damage. Kind of odd thinking that a disease can protect you from something worse. But if you don't protect your vital functions of your brain, you could lose something much worse than just your memory. So what is the strategy then for reversing dementia? Dale Bredesen has a picture that he uses, an analogy, and he talks about the 36 factors. There are like 36 holes in your roof, in your house. There's 36 holes there with drugs that are trying to clear out amyloid beta protein and those tangles and plaques. That's just one hole. And that hole was actually maybe a patch covering up another hole, so it wasn't even worse than that. So sometimes when they clear up the plaque, dementia actually gets worse, not better. But the strategy here is to look, says, I have 36 holes, I need to patch enough of them so that I get up to a threshold. So the water coming in the holes is not so much that the sump pumps inside the building can't pump it out. Because your brain has clean and self-healing built in. It too can help regenerate itself if you give the resources it needs and you get the toxins out of the way. It's not really that different from the rest of the body. The rest of the body, we teach, it's nutrition and toxicity. You have to supply the nutrition that your body needs to build itself up, and you have to get rid of the toxicity in the body. The same thing applies to Alzheimer's disease. So it's not a mystery in that sense of wondering, well, how do you combat this? Well, which holes do you tackle first? That's where testing comes in. To test and see, okay, this is the kind of Alzheimer's that I have, and this is where I need to focus my attention. Because you may not have all the resources to tackle all 36 factors all at the same time. So just the mental energy to try to take care of that is quite a bit. So it's worth doing some testing to figure out what factors do I need to work on first. Well, Hallie Akers, we don't run tests ourselves. You can do testing and apply what we have to your case. We find that when someone changes their diet, that they tend to get better from whatever it is they have. So we have a holistic approach, including the diet, dietary supplements. You need regular exercise. Of course, you need to take care of your physical environment so you're not constantly exposed to toxins and mold. You need to take care of your relational environment, toxic relationships. You need help with those. If you can't avoid them, you need help at least to be at peace on your part with all people around you. You need to do things that engage your brain so you're not just zoned out watching TV and things like that. You need to be engaging your brain in helpful activities, where you're still giving back to other people. You need sleep. Sleep is so important because your brain is actually cleansing itself while you're sleeping. So that's very important for Alzheimer's too. And a factor that Dale Bredesen noticed, he was asking his nurse, well, which patients were getting better? And the nurse said, well, the ones who are sleeping, those are the ones who are recovering. Even with all the things they were doing, you had to get the sleep in there as well. So that's our approach. Now, our dietary approach with a vegan, plant-based diet is different from what many doctors are recommending out there. They say you need ketones for brain health. You need some mild ketosis, and that's what's going to get you the results there. I would say, no, you don't. You really don't. Because your goals for your ketogenic diet, and the 12-3 just stands for 12 hours of fasting every day and 3 hours of, have your last meal 3 hours before you go to bed. That's the 12-3 part. And those are good things to do with any diet, having 12 hours where you're not eating and not going to bed with a full stomach. But their goal is to reduce insulin resistance and reduce inflammation. Can you do that with a Halia diet? Of course you can. Of course you can. So the Halia diet works as well, and we don't generate ketones on our diet. I really don't think so. But we're getting the same kind of results. We are able to reverse insulin resistance. We help people normalize their body weight. Inflammation goes down. We've measured that when people drink, even just drinking juice every day, helps inflammation go down dramatically, helps normalize it. So, yeah, we can meet these goals. You just need to stay away from the saturated fat, the SAD diet. With all the refined carbs and saturated fat together are just a disaster. You want to stay away from that. So at Healthy Acres, we have a 4-step process to help you change your diet. First is just to consume primarily raw vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds. We have stuff on the website, people you can work with, talk to, that show you, here's the steps how to get started here. Replace those toxic foods in your life. There's the list there: processed packaged foods, white flour, white sugar, refined vegetable oil, dairy products, and meat. You just need to replace those. And then add in the barley max and vegetable juice, and supercharge your nutrition there. Most people are low in these supplements. That's why we recommend them so highly to so many people. The vitamin B12, D3K2, iodine, selenium, DHA. Most people are low in those. They don't have optimal levels of any of those on pretty much any diet. So it's not something that it's just particular to vegetarians or vegans not eating meat and dairy products and animal products. These supplements are really good for pretty much everybody. So that's the 4-step process. Our fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, get rid of the toxic foods, add in barley max vegetable juice, and take a few supplements. That's the main thing to do. Now, this seminar is not just about, how to do that, but just a couple good tips there. Where do you start? If you can't do it all cold turkey, and maybe you shouldn't do it all cold turkey, add in some good foods first. Do a fruit smoothie in the morning. That's easy. It tastes great. And it's easy to comply with that because it tastes good. You add the flaxseed in there. It's going to keep you going for hours. Add in the nuts and seeds. Add in 2 or 3 ounces of raw nuts and seeds every day. Get in 1 salad every day. Do those 3 things, you're halfway there at least. And then you can make substitutions and, work on dinner things that work well for you, or lunch things, whichever your big meal is. Work on getting healthier ingredients into those. So it's really not that difficult. The Halia diet's actually pretty simple in a lot of ways, and you can make it more complex if you want to, but it doesn't have to be. I do want to mention here the Perfect Cleanse. There's a whole webinar on that. If you go back and look at that when we launched the Perfect Cleanse, what it is, it's taking 5 days out of 1 week for a month, and then doing it again 3 consecutive months. So it's 15 days of cleansing total. During that cleanse, you're using the Halia diet juice powders, along with B-flax D, mod carb, and 2 avocados a day. It works out to about 700 calories or so. So you can still go about doing most of your normal stuff while you're doing that. While you're doing that, your body is cleaning house. The process is autophagy. It's cleaning out the weak cells, the diseased cells, the infected ones. It's taking care of viruses and cleansing things out. When you start eating again, there is a boost of stem cells that are released and helps build back the organs up to full strength. Where they've been kind of shrinking a little bit while you're not eating very much, they're still burning the same amount of energy. The stem cells help build those back up. But instead of having the weak and diseased cells, now you have new cells that are strong that you've been feeding all this good nutrition to. So that's a great way to quickly make some progress, in whether it's dementia or heart disease or diabetes or arthritis, whatever you're trying to overcome, that's a good way to help supply your body with what it needs to overcome these things quickly. So I just want to mention that that's applicable in this area too. You don't want to start there. I wouldn't start there. You want to be in a reasonable place of good health before you do the perfect cleanse. So just start with a Hallie-Akers diet. That works great to start with here. There are a couple of supplements along the way here that are beneficial just for brain health. They're formulated just really to help someone with brain health here. This is a product that we have at Hallie-Akers now called Brain Health Professional Formula. It has neurotransmitter precursors in there, not just one or two, but it has about 4 in there that are used to help produce the neurotransmitters you need that helps your brain function right. It also has ginkgo biloba extract in there and some blueberry extract that helps the blood flow to the brain improve, so you get more nutrients there, oxygen delivery increases. It has antioxidants for protection, has some phosphatidylserine in there as well. That helps build up the brain. That's some of the structural fats, phospholipids that you need for the actual structure of the brain itself. And then it has a couple of herbs as well that help balance that response to stress. So bring some balance to some ginseng and ashwagandha. So it's a great formula, and it's going to be helpful to a lot of people to get results faster here. A second thing is the Bacopa monnieri extract. This is really great for memory, and this isn't just specific to dementia or something like that. That's just for someone that wants their brain to work better. So you learn stuff faster, you forget stuff slower. I mean, how good is that? Helps you consolidate memory, and just with multitasking, it's a good thing. So we added that in there. There's a kit that we've put together for cognitive impairment. In that kit, we have these 2 products here, the Bacopa, as well as the Brain Health Supplement, and some of our supplements that we already had. And we put those together and made a cognitive impairment Alzheimer's rescue plan. So if you're looking and says, what do I need to get results fast? These are the things that will help you a lot. And this is not specific if you have a toxic kind of Alzheimer's. You need to do a different approach. But if you have inflammatory problems or infection, all these things are going to be very helpful. So fish oil, the amount you need is about 2 grams of DHA and EPA each day. We're taking the professional strength DHA. You just need 2 capsules of that. You need 2 capsules a day of that. So along with the fish oil, curcumin. Think of curcumin, people think, well, that's good for joints, or that's good for gut health, or that's good for eyes. But it's also good for your brain. And it's been shown, the BCM95 that we have, it's been shown in randomized clinical trials, it's good for mood and depression. It's very good for that. And it helps all across the body for turning on the anti-inflammatory genes all around the body. So that's actually very important for brain health as well. And fish oil and curcumin, those would be the top 2 that I would think of for using with helping your brain. B12, that's a close third in that there, because that helps with nerve. B12 is just it's nerve food. And those 3 together work for homocysteine, that's true, but it helps all around for helping nerves be healthy here. As you get older, it is harder to absorb B12 from food as you age. So the book that we have, Could It Be B12?, talks about a lot of symptoms that are overcome with B12. A lot of those things that are overcome are neurological problems. So that's something I would consider for brain health as well. Vitamin D3 with K2. The K2, people think, well, that just helps tell the vitamin D where to send the calcium, so you get more calcium in the body, and the K2 helps direct it to the right place. Well, the form of K2 in the brain, there is K2 in the brain, right? The form is MK4, this menaquinone 4. That's one of the forms of K2 that's in the supplement. And I think it gets through. That's the hope. There's quite a bit of it in there, actually. So it gets through. It's a form of vitamin K2 that should be very good for the brain as well. So That's part of that. If you're dealing with inflammation or infections, or with toxins, either, liposomal vitamin C is a very good idea because it gets into the body, it gets into the cells of the body, not just into the bloodstream. There's a very good absorption of it, so you're not just wasting money using any sort of vitamin C. So you're gonna normalize that metabolic inflammation in the brain as well as the whole body. And magnesium, because magnesium helps with insulin resistance, helps fight inflammation in a lot of ways. It's the calming, the anti-stress mineral, help you relax. And a lot of things are very stressful about losing your memory. It's very, very stressful. There's a lot of other supplements. I'm pretty sure you've heard of some of them that I haven't mentioned. So there's some here, and there's too many to count here. That would be helpful for the brain because it's just a part of your body. Things that are good for the other part of the body are often good for your brain as well. So you're waiting for the silver bullet, aren't you? What else is there? Well, that's it. Change your diet, take some supplements targeted for the brain, and voila, you can reverse cognitive decline. Just like that? Is it really that easy? Could it be that simple to take down the third largest killer in America? And indeed it is. See, Dr. Bedison has been teaching other physicians to use his RECODE program. So they published a study here just in 2018 of 100 patients that they have helped with. And they found, it does work. It does work. It works consistently. Now, their program's slightly different from ours. They're doing more testing, obviously. They're doctors. They're doing testing to find out which holes to fix the fastest. So it's not a bad program that way. It's a very good program. And you're going to get the same kind of results if you change your diet with Howley Acres. Do the Howley diet. If you don't have dementia, it's a good idea to start now. It takes a long time before those holes in your brain get so big that you notice your memories is waning and it's not working as well as it used to. So get started today. We want to talk just a little bit here about sowing and reaping. And Galatians says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption. But he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. Now, obviously, this is a spiritual book with a spiritual application. For the one who sows to his flesh, he lives for himself. He denies God. He denies that God is his Lord, that he's in control of everything. He doesn't submit his will to God. He reaps corruption that comes to him. He does not get everlasting life. But the one who sows to the Spirit, he submits to the will of God. He allows himself to be forgiven by Jesus atoning for his sin on the cross. This man reaps everlasting life. That's a spiritual application, but there's also a physical application. God is not mocked. He has given us a plan for how physical health works. It's not real complicated. In Genesis 1:29, it says, the fruits, the plants, those are what are your food. And there was room for changes after Noah's flood, but he gave us this body temple, and he doesn't want us putting trash in there. If you put trash in, you're going to reap trash out. That's just the way it is. You can't reap really good health by putting trash into your body. God has designed you to be a beautiful person, a whole person, with beautiful physical health, with beautiful emotional health, with beautiful spiritual health, so that you're a well-rounded, beautiful person. That is who God created you to be. And so we're doing our part with the Howley diet to help you get back to that, to have the health that you were designed to have. So I just want to thank you for paying attention, for listening, for giving you hope, real hope, that you can turn around cognitive decline and memory loss, and you can have the health in your golden years so that they truly are golden, and you can remember everything that you should remember, that you want to remember. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Donaldson. That was great information and quite enlightening, and it's exciting to see that there are solutions and that we can actually reverse cognitive issues, and we don't have to be stuck with them. That's really encouraging. We do have a couple of questions. One would be, would you recommend chelation as a form of treatment for dementia?
Unlike EDTA chelation, if you're doing that,
right,
it may help in some cases, especially if there's a toxicity element to the Alzheimer's. I would think it would be beneficial in that. And in some other ways, because it could help improve blood flow by helping with increased circulation. I wouldn't do it by itself. Obviously, I don't think you're thinking of that, but it could be beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yep. How do you think genetics plays a role in this? If both the parents had it, is it something that's passed down through genes, or is it diet-centric?
There is a gene, and you've probably heard of it, the ApoE gene. There's an allele, it's ApoE3 or an ApoE4. So you could have 1, 1, or 2 copies of the ApoE4 gene. So if you have the 2 copies of the ApoE4, your risk of Alzheimer's is more than 50%. If you have one of them, it's like 25%. If you have none of them, it's about 9%. So there's a pretty strong genetic aspect of it too, of genetic tendency towards it. That doesn't mean that the genes rule. Nutrition trumps genes every time, even in dementia. But it does mean if you have that genetic tendency that you really need to pay attention, because this is what's coming for you if you don't really take, a lot of efforts to reverse it, to prevent it, and keep your brain healthy.
Makes sense. And would this same program kind of work for Parkinson's as well?
Yep, it's going to work similar. That's a little bit, mechanisms for where Parkinson's comes from aren't the same as Alzheimer's. But in a lot of ways, I suspect there's going to be lifestyle and diet things that affect Parkinson's quite a bit too. It seems to me that there's a fair bit of research with pesticides and chemical exposure with Parkinson's. So you need to look probably more at the cleansing aspects, detoxification, heavy metals, getting some things that help with those aspects, especially for Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Somebody who's a diehard vegan vegetarian, if they don't want to use fish capsules, would they get the same benefit from like an Udo's DHA?
Per serving, how much DHA is in Udo's? Is it 200 milligrams per tablespoon?
I don't recall.
There is some in there. There is some, but you're going to have to use a lot more of it, because it's, you need higher levels. So of the DHA, it's going to be 6 or 8 servings a day or something like that. And you could do that. I could see someone actually potentially doing it that way.
And does the DHA from like the Udo's assimilate as well as from the fish oil?
As far as I know, it does. Assimilation is pretty similar in there. So it'd work. You just have to get the right amount there. So it's the dose that's important. So you need to get, the preformed EPA and DHA, you need to get about 2 grams a day.
Okay. And does pH of the tissue play any role in dementia?
I'm not clear exactly what they mean by the pH of the tissue. But in terms of, if you talk about acid and alkaline balance,
I would think that's
different
probably
tissues.
what
So if you're looking at the acid-alkaline balance, we don't focus on that aspect in terms of saying this diet is acidic or this diet's alkaline. But the Hallelujah diet does tend to be alkaline. It leaves the alkaline ash in the body. You get a lot of the divalent minerals, the calcium, the magnesium, the zinc, manganese. Those are what helps build up, and the potassium somewhat too. Those are what help build up the alkalinity. And the bicarbonate that forms through. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to end the elimination of the acidic forming substances like the coffee and the dairy and the animal products.
The high protein diet is going to lead to a lot of ammonia and a lot of acid in the process. Think protein is made of amino acids. Acids, that's a part of that. You forget, they're all acids, right?
Well,
so that would
great.
be part of the healthy diet.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have at this time, Dr. Donaldson. Any last-minute thoughts or comments?
I think it's just we don't know that many people who have reversed their dementia or early stage dementia or mild cognitive impairment, but it's coming. As this information gets out and people apply it, we will know more and more people who will be able to tell you, this is what I did and I got better. I got my life back. I got my memory back. I know all my grandchildren's names. I don't mix them up anymore. So it's coming. So looking forward to more and more of that coming, and people with a greater understanding of, taking the mystery out of Alzheimer's. We're just kind of looking up, says, I don't know why this happens. But now we have a much better picture of why it happens. So we can go forward with that. That's great information. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing the research and for bringing us this life-changing information for so many people. And we appreciate your time this evening and bringing us a presentation. So thank you for your time this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you all for listening.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to bringing another presentation next month. So until then, be in good health. God bless.